being here. This is actually a little bit harder. Many of you were here for my dad's funeral not too long ago. And I don't know, I've been trying to come up with the words for Mom, and it's a little more difficult. And I think it's because everything she did was very subtle. It was kind of behind the scenes. And so it was magical, it was wonderful, but it's just not so maybe as plain as with Dad. But our main theme is love. Everything that you'll kind of hear today is around that, because that's what she did. And it wasn't, yeah, she said a lot of I love yous, but she taught me it's not just about what you say. And I'm going to talk about some of the ways that she showed that and what she taught me about love through her life. She really had one goal in life, and that was to serve God through her calling. And she knew what her calling was. She was called initially to be a teacher, but she, I think, always knew she was called to be a wife and a mother, and that is what she lived for in every way. She made it look easy. She made it look like her duties were just the simplest thing that she ever had to do. I don't know, was it? I have no idea, but she never complained. We talked about that with my dad too, but she never complained. She never was too tired to do anything. So my first kind of category is love through dependability. She taught me that love means being there no matter what. We praised my dad a lot a few months ago, but we know that he was the man that he was because of her. We know that there was a change in him because of her. When I say dependability, it was a consistent behavior every single day. He went off to work, and she would get up and make his breakfast. She would walk him to the door and kiss him goodbye. She would run from there to the living room and open up the blinds and wave as he drove down the street, and he would toot his horn every single day. And this was twice a day because he came home for lunch. And they did the exact same routine again. But it didn't matter. Was she always completely happy with him? I can't imagine that. I'm a wife. I know what life is like, right? Okay. Anyway. But no, it had to be difficult at times, but she could very consistent. It didn't matter what, did she have a cold or was she feeling tired? Very consistent patterns, and she did that for my brother and I also. You know, sometimes she'd go away with her sisters to see her mom or something and not be there at lunch. So what would she do? She'd make his whole lunch, put a bowl over it so it wouldn't dry out, leave him a note, and he'd still come home from lunch even though she wasn't there and read her note. And so there was just that consistency, and I just think that when a man has that, he feels like he can do anything because of her love behind that. Because I know what it did for me, and when a child can grow up and never doubt that their mother loves them and is there for them and will love them no matter what, it changes your life. So there was the importance of that routine. I never had to worry about what to expect with Mom. Am I going to come home and find her in a bad mood? It never happened. I don't even know what her bad mood would look like. Am I going to come home? You know, there's no uncertainty in our life. There's a very dependable routine. I can't ever say that she let me down. Not one time in my life was I thinking that she would do something that she didn't do. And you know, teenagers aren't easy, so it didn't matter as I grew up and maybe wasn't the best person for a few years or had some challenges. Mom didn't change. She was always there. So she really showed me what unconditional love means. It didn't matter if I won the spelling bee or won the tennis tournament, Mom was always there. So that was love through dependability. She also taught me love through service. That was what her life was serving other people. She did it in a lot of ways. Cooking and baking. She loved to cook and bake. They liked to entertain people so she could get out her bars or cookies. Some of you will remember that. But she loved to kind of show love through her service with that, through her piano playing, brought people a lot of joy. She played for, I mean, we would have no idea how many weddings and funerals and accompaniments for singers or things like that, lots and lots of times. And she really enjoyed that. Another thing she taught me about love through service, when I was a kid, I don't know how old, I think my dad told me to dry the dishes for her, and I had a bad attitude. And she said, I don't want you to dry the dishes. She said, God loves a cheerful giver, and if you don't want to have a good attitude about it, I don't want your help. And I just never forgot that, that she wanted, and that's how she lived her life. She wasn't going to do something for someone and then hold it over them. Well, I did that. I never heard her say that, ever. So love through service. Lastly, well, sort of lastly, but love through humility is another thing that I'll talk about. You know, a lot of people might have thought my mother was weak or timid. She did all these things out of love. She was never forced to do anything. She chose to do these things. And I would say it was actually hard for her, though, to let other people care for her. She really wanted to be the caretaker, but she let me care for her. And I think that she showed me a lot of love by doing that. I was a freshman in high school when she had a heart attack, and you know, I was able to make meals and help her recover from that. Strangely, I have a note that I wrote in that year for freshman comp or something that said I wanted to be a nurse. Apparently I forgot that for about 20 years and went a different route. But I read that, I don't know, not too long ago. But because of being able to care for her, I learned what that was like. Later on, she had cancer. She let me bring her audiobooks and bring her meals and take her to her appointments. And all that was hard for her because she wanted to be in that role, so it was very difficult for her. So I felt like she showed a lot of love through that. And then, of course, the dementia is a very tough disease, and she struggled to let go of taking care of others and let us help her, but she did it. And I had a lot of joy from when we lived in Minnesota that she would come and visit, and I could actually get her to not do anything. And that was like almost impossible. But I'd say, Dad and I are going to do a project. Sit down and play the piano. Here's a book to read. I got to make her a meal, and it was really nice to be able to pay her back in that way, and she allowed me to do that. So a lot of you knew her. Everyone talks about how sweet and kind she is. You know, I didn't mention it up here, and I have to because there is a special relationship that she had with children. A friend of mine once told me that it was when I was graduating from college, and this friend of mine had 3 children with her, and she said, your mom got down on her knees and talked to my children who she never met before, and it made a memorable impression on her children, and my mom had never met them before. But she just had this kind of knack with children, for sure. Probably all of her years of teaching, and so we have a small crowd here today, but I just think about all those lives, 17 years of 3rd graders that my mom loved. Thanks for coming, Sarah. I was just talking about your children. Anyway, so she was a very strong woman, although, you know, she also believed in her place in the home, but she was a fighter. She was a fighter in her health, and she was a fighter as far as what she believed. I said at the beginning that she taught me how to love through showing me. She also taught me that love isn't love until you give it away. My mom would do anything for anyone, and yet she never felt empty. You could have asked her, and she never felt like people didn't appreciate her or like her or anything. She just didn't worry about those things. She was so filled with love. So she really taught me a lot by that as you're giving it away, you're just filled up. So I'm going to miss her. Our last few months were actually very special because, you know, I had more time to devote to her personally. So it was a very special time. And but we will mourn. We're happy for her. But I have a lot of work to do and a great legacy to follow. So can't spend too much time in the sorrow. We're going to move on with a song. It's called My Cup Runneth Over with Love. It was my mother's favorite song about my dad, but I also think it just fits her because her cup runneth over. Thank you.